How's your weekend? That's so good. So good. All right, let's jump right in. This whole year, 2024, we've been in a series taking a look at the words of Jesus, the interactions of Jesus. So we've been in the Gospels the entire time. Just taking a year to think about Jesus' teaching and Jesus' instructions on life. The greatest teacher in his instructions, and here is a section from the greatest sermon ever given, or the greatest talk ever given by the greatest teacher ever given, and he says this: do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. This is one of many places that Jesus invokes the concept of mortality. Not morality, but mortality. The fact that our lives are but an instant, that there is an end, a coming end to what we know about this life. Jesus is constantly invoking this in his teaching. We'll look at a couple of places today. This is a heavy one. I'll just warn you in advance, nothing that I'm going to say this morning I think you don't already know, but in a weird way, and maybe the weirdest of all ways, this is the thing that we know the most and tend to ignore the most, or forget the most, or pretend it's not happening the most. It is unusual. The shocking way to say it is, we're all running out of time. Like the hourglass, the sand is slipping through the hourglass. It's happening right before our eyes, and we are convincing ourselves many times, either passively or completely by our own will, that this isn't happening. Let's take a look. Anybody know what this is? Check this out. Anybody know what that is? Yeah, it's a painting. This is called a memento mori. Anybody heard of that? Memento mori, memento mori. This is Latin. This is the idea that it's just the phrase that says, remember, you're going to die. That's what a memento mori is. Remember, you're going to die. Which is wild, right? Like, who forgot? But that's the weird thing, right? It's like, They came up with a whole artistic expression that says, hey, we should probably remind ourselves and others that time's slipping by and that we're going to die. Remember, you're going to die. In fact, it was such a part of the culture at the time this comes to be that many times even Roman generals, after victories, they said that, historians say that there was a slave whose entire job was to say to the general during the victory parade, remember, you're going to die. Memento mori, remember, look back, you're going to die. Don't let it go to your head, you're human, right? That's it in a coin. This is it in a tattoo for all my tattoo people. If you're looking for a new idea for a memento mori tattoo, just put it on your body if you need that reminder. Or here it is in a headstone. Many times you'll find it on headstones. Or how about this, maybe the high pinnacle of a memento mori. This is a chapel in Portugal, Capela dos Ossos. This is a chapel in Portugal, and the entire chapel, check this out, is made out of bones, actual human remains. The entire thing. The walls, the ceiling, the pillars, all of it made with over 5,000 individual human remains. People come from all over the world to see. This is called the Chapel of the Bones. People come from all over the world to see this chapel, made by Franciscan friars, right? These religious men who said to themselves, think this through, we should build a chapel out of human remains so that when people come to the chapel, they'll say to themselves, oh yeah, I'm going to die. That's going to happen, right? As if They were so aware that we needed this reminder. At the place where the roof meets in the chapel is the inscription from the book of Ecclesiastes, right? The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 7, verse 1, that says, "The day of death better than the day of birth." I'll let you just take that in for a moment. I don't know if anybody believes that, but that's in the Bible. Funny side note, let's just do it. A funny side note. Every now and then, it's very unusual for me to attend a wedding that I'm not officiating. That's just part of the complications of my job, right? Most of the time I go to a wedding, it's to officiate the wedding, right? Many times, I'm just gonna be honest with you, I don't want to be there, right? But I'm there because it's part of the work, you know what I'm saying? And my job is to get you through the wedding, pray for dinner, and get out of there before the electric slide starts, okay? So that's my deal, right? That's my deal. But I'm at this wedding, and there's a whole bunch of reasons that I'm not doing this wedding, but we won't go through those today. And I'm at this wedding, and the officiant at the wedding, who was, I don't know where they got him, and he kept quoting from the book of Ecclesiastes, and he kept saying the book of exclamations, right? Exclamations. And I kept thinking, I'm dyslexic, but that is a long shot. I don't know how you got that. That is wild that we got to the book of exclamations. I kept looking around like, am I the only one seeing this? Think that through, though. Look at that. The day of death better than the day of birth. The book of Ecclesiastes is written by a guy who had everything. I don't know if you've read the book of Ecclesiastes. The book of exclamations. I don't know if you've read this. It's written by a guy who had everything, who amassed more wealth, more sexual escapades, more power than any of us could ever dream. Yet he arrives with all of it, and he keeps saying things like, all of it's useless, all of it's vanities, all of it's slipping through my hands. And then he says things like this: the day of death better than the day of birth. And these Franciscan friars pick up on this, put it in this chapel of the bones as a way of saying there is a gift that comes with the constant awareness of one's own mortality. At that chapel there in Portugal, on the wall is a poem by one of these Franciscan friars who was a part of the leadership there during the time of construction. I just want to read part of this. I'll read the whole thing to you. It's not that long. And it's translated, so it's not great. It's not great poetry in English, but so just stick with me. I think you can get it, right? Where are you going in such a hurry, traveler? This is people who've come to see this on the wall. Pause. Do not advance your travel. You have no greater concern than this one, that which is now before your eyes. Recall how many have passed from this world. Reflect on your similar end. There is good reason to do so, if only all did the same. Ponder, you so influenced by fate, among the many concerns of this world, so little do you reflect on death. If by chance you glance at this place, stop. For sake of your own journey, the longer you pause, the further on your journey you will be. It's interesting, right? Like the idea from whether it's Ecclesiastes, whether it's a Franciscan friar, whether it's multiple different faiths or worldviews who embrace this concept that laying hold of our own mortality somehow changes the way we move through space and time. That that our own acknowledgement of our mortality, our own reflection upon that mortality, and that really is, that's a difference, right? Not just awareness, but our reflection, because everybody's like to some extent aware, but our reflection upon that mortality, and not just the experience, but the reflection of that experience, right? Because everybody grows old, but not everybody gets wise. I didn't know that was going to be deep. Okay, that was, wow, heavy response. But that's true, right? Everybody grows old, but not everybody gets wise, right? Only the reflection upon these things changes the worldview and the makeup and how we move through the world. And that's why this chapel is saying, hey, stop, reflect, think. This time is slipping through your hands. This is your mortality that we're talking about, right? The Bible says it this way, or Jesus says it this way in other places. Do not fear those who can kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both the soul and the body in hell. There's this constant push to think about our mortality. I was on a plane. Actually, I was reading an article in Forbes because I'm so well. I was reading an article in Forbes, and just because I was on a plane and it happened to be in the thing in front of me, and I pulled up this article, and the title of the article was, "Not sure what to do? ? Take the deathbed test," by Maggie Waller, sorry. She's a PhD. And I was thinking to myself, the deathbed test. And the whole concept of her article was to say that if you were to kind of envision yourself at the end, envision yourself on your deathbed, how would that change the now, right? And what you're facing in the now. And she had some questions in her deathbed test that I thought were pretty interesting. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, well, okay, that's heavy, right? That's a heavy way to look at life. And so I came up with my own deathbed test that I'd like to give you guys today. 3 questions, the deathbed. I know you guys are like, wow, this is a real pick-me-up this morning. But 3 questions in the deathbed test because I think this is important, okay? Question number 1 in my deathbed test. And I'd like to ask you, right? In the end, imagine yourself in the end. In the end, will this matter? Whatever you're currently facing, whatever currently is stressing you out, whatever currently seems like a problem, whatever currently seems like a challenge, right? Whatever currently seems like, gosh, this is a mess. Whatever it is, will this matter in the end? I have this conversation a lot with individuals one-on-one, and many times when you put it in that perspective, it's like, no, this will not matter. The thing that I'm consumed with right now, whether it's causing fear or anxiety or worry or regret or whatever it is, any of these things, whatever it is, will it matter? When I'm on my deathbed, will that matter? Ask yourself that. Whatever it is, whatever you're currently facing, whatever current challenges are before you, honestly, just do the test. Will this matter? Am I giving this too much power, credence? Am I giving it too much energy? Am I giving it too much effort? Am I overthinking this? It is an amazing perspective giver, isn't it? It's interesting that many times in life we come to these moments that the emotion that's attached to it, whether it's fear, anxiety, or stress, or whatever it is, you look at the life situation before you and you cannot help but see the obstacle. But this test, it does open up a door where it says, hey, is this an obstacle or is this an opportunity? Because those two things, the funny thing is those two things can look really, like, depending on your day and your perspective and your attitude, that you can be looking at the same thing. 2 people could look at the same thing and go, obstacle. And the other person go, no, that's an opportunity. An opportunity to look at this a different way, to feel differently about this, to do life differently. Sometimes the very closed door just means an open door. It's like, And I know that I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but it is funny how we forget this. Forget this. Sometimes the most experienced forget this. You know, it doesn't matter how many times we've experienced. We'll be sitting there mulling something over, stressed out, worn out, whatever it is, and somebody will go, yeah, but is this really going to, and you're going, oh yeah, no, I guess it's not. I'm freaking myself out for no reason. Jesus says this. He says, in me you may have peace, but in this world you will have trouble. That's what he says to his disciples. In me you'll have peace. In this world you will have trouble. Hey, it's not like he's some pie in the sky pyramid scheme religious salesman where he's like, just join me and it's going to be fine. He's like, no, it's going to be trouble. But take heart, I've overcome the world. Don't worry, because in the end, I'm working it all out for your good. You're going to have a little faith in the end. Are you with me? Question number 2 in my deathbed test. I want you to ask yourself this. Are you ready? Question number 2. What will I wish I did more of? When I'm on my deathbed, when I'm at the end, what am I going to wish I did more of? And then do that, right? What am I going to wish? When I get to the end, imagine it for just a moment. Do the meditative work. Think about it for just a moment. When I get to the end, and I'm there, and we're all headed there, what am I going to wish I did more of? What are you going to wish? And then, whatever you imagine that to be, do that, right? Now, I want to give one caveat. The caveat to this is the one area in this deathbed test where really you can go down a road that seems like the test is leading you, but really it's a perversion of the test, okay? Well, let me explain. Jesus is constantly showing up to people, and he's talking about the idea that there are people alive that aren't alive. It's the difference between like life and real life, right? So he's constantly showing up to people like in John 10:10, and he says, I've come that you may have life. Like, it's a bunch of people who are alive. And he's like, I've come that you may have life. And they're like, we're alive, right? Like now, breathing, here I am. And he's like, not really, not really. He's constantly invoking the idea that it's possible to go through the motions and not really exist, or to invest in things that aren't really connected with what it means to truly live. Does that make sense? And so there's this version of life that's a perversion of life that's the thing Solomon's bringing up in the book of exclamations so much, is that Solomon keeps bringing up this idea that you can pour into things that you think you want in the moment, right? You think you want them. So he says the words, eat, drink, and be merry, right? Eat, drink, and be merry, like the great prophet Dave Matthews. Eat, drink, and be merry, right? For tomorrow you die, which is this idea, this Epicurean philosophy, this idea that says, hey, the pursuit of pleasure is the absolute highest value. It's hedonism in its religious form, right? If you'll just pursue what you want in the moment, the next good time, it'll lead to the life you want. And then all of a sudden you get there and you're like, man, there's not enough drinks. There's not enough good times. There's not enough money. There's not enough stuff, not enough promotions that'll ever get me there. It's funny, I think I've told you this before, but and this is true for all of us. It's true for everybody in the room, okay? So I don't want to pick on any certain group, but it is funny, right? Because can you remember a time, like if you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s, or 60s, you're getting close, whatever. Kidding. But you know what I'm saying? Like, can you remember a time where you look back 20 years, 30 years, and you said to yourself, if I could just make this, I'd be happy. Whatever that number was, you're over it now, and you're still not there, right? You're like, if I could just make this now. That's all of us. All of us do this, right? To some extent, where it's like human condition, right? I got a buddy who's in a completely different financial category. And I remember asking him, how much is it going to be till you're content? And he gave me a number. I didn't want to say the number's shocking, right? Shockingly high. And he was like, this is the number, right? And I remember thinking, wow, it's a huge number. It's a huge number, liquid. And 5, 6 years later, he's completely surpassed the number. I go to him, I say, hey, what's the number that you're going to be content? You know, when it's going to stop, you just stop completely and you just exist. And, and he goes, he gave me a new number. And the number was shocking, right? And I said, remember when you gave me the other number? And he was like, I know. I don't know what I was thinking. It wasn't enough. It's never enough. It's never enough, right? And so there's this version of life where this question, what I wish I would have done more of, could lead you down a road to hedonism, could lead you down a road where you're investing in existence, not real life. I've done this for a long time. I've done ministry work for a long time, done my whole ministry here in Osceola County, here with this congregation. I've done it a long time. One of the privileges of that ministry is to get to exist with people and do life with people, especially end of life with people. I've done that a lot. I have never heard, and I've been at a bunch of deathbeds, I've never heard anybody say, I wish I'd done one more day at the office. It's never been said to me. Right? And my whole time, I never heard anybody say at their deathbed, I wish I had, just $10,000 more and I would have been happy, right? No one has ever said those things ever to anyone. You know what they say? I wish I had a little bit more time with these people that I loved, and I wish I would have been a little bit more present. That's what they say, almost always. Listen to this. This is Hal Borland, great writer, Hal Borland, and he says this. Weekend planning is a prime time to apply the deathbed priority test. I didn't know that was even a thing, but it is. On your deathbed, will you wish you'd spent more prime weekend hours grocery shopping or walking in the woods with your kids? Right? I don't know what the end of that sentence should be for you, but I think what Hal is saying is there's a monotony to life that sometimes we can get ourselves in a routine of busyness that's not really living, it's just existing. I think that's why Jesus comes and rattles some cages when he says, I've come that you may have life. And everybody's like, well, I thought we were alive. He's like, not really. And I think there's some people out there who are so desperate for life and they're desperate to feel alive that will substitute a perversion of that life for really things that matter, only to get all the way to the end and say, oh, this was not filling. Kind of like Solomon and Ecclesiastes. Vanity, vanity, all is vanity. Third deathbed test question, and the last. All right, so here we go. In the end, what do I want my friends and family to say about me? In the end, when I reach my end, what do I want them to say? What do I want my friends and family to say about me? And then, are you ready for this? Do that. Do that. Live that way, right? If you want your friends and family to say, Mike was sacrificial, dependable, loving, available, live sacrificially and depending and loving towards other people and available. Do those things. Live that way. And you know what I'm talking about. You ever been to a funeral? Probably some of you have. You ever been to a funeral and somebody's giving the eulogy and you can just tell, well, this is not true. You know what I'm talking about? Where they are just searching for something to say that was positive, right? They're just like, he was such a good dude, He's a good guy. And it's just anything. And you just feel, I do these a lot, so you just feel like, oh gosh, there's nothing authentic, nothing personal, nothing of depth, nothing of truth to it. It just feels very like, he always had a smile or whatever it was. And you're just like, what do you want your family to say? What do you want your friends to say about you? Live that truth. Live the truth that hasn't happened yet, right? Are you hoping for? It was always there was a smile. You know what I'm saying? Are you hoping for something of depth and meaning? I'm not the first one to put forth this idea. It comes in a long history of philosophy traditions, religious traditions. Jesus himself is invoking this concept. And here, I like the one from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, chapter 2, Steve Covey, who says this. This is his chapter. He says, begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. And I'm saying this to you, your end in mind. Begin with your end in mind. What will they say? What will your family say? What will your friends say? What will they say? Live that way. Live that way and live it now, right? Will they say, we laughed together. We laughed so hard, right? We worked together. We worked so hard. We shared deeply. We trusted completely. Live that way. Live with the type of relationships where people can trust you, share with you, laugh with you, be available to them in that way. Live with that type of depth of meaning. Look at this. Here's my test. In the end, will this matter? Whatever you're facing, will it matter? In the end, what will I wish I did more of? Do it now. In the end, what do I want my friends and family to say? Live that way now. Do it now. Don't wait another day. Say the things that need to be said. Do the things that need to be done. Don't just exist. Live. Jesus says, I've come that you may have life. But he also says, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven because the time is slipping through your hands. So I give you this as my gift, my memento mori to you this morning, my chapel of bones. Stop, take it in, meditate on it for just a few moments before we take communion together. And I pray that even if it just jars you back into real life for a moment, that's the gift. I'll leave it on the screen for you. Take a few quiet moments before we take communion together. Communion is a memento mori of sorts. Jesus had been predicting his coming death to his disciples for the better part of 2 years. For whatever reason, blinded by their pride or life experience or the Holy Spirit, they just couldn't see it. The night before he was crucified, he took bread, gave it to his disciples, these friends of his, laughed with, traveled with, worked with, cried with. He said, guys, this is my body. It'll be broken for you and bloodshed for you. He instituted this memorial that we take today as a reminder that Christ's death, burial, and resurrection is our life. We put our complete faith and trust in it. Simple faith offered up to God, not by my work, but by His. Do that weekly act of just surrendering to Him and giving thanks. Take it and eat, take it and drink, give thanks.
This is my confidence. You've never failed me.
Let me pray for you. Father, we ask your blessing upon everyone that's here, from the top of their head to the bottom of their feet. May they be blessed in your name and blessed by the hearing of your word. Father, you are good. Your mercies endure forever. They're new every morning, and we need them this morning. Seems like our collective experience is to forget our need for you and our coming face-to-face meeting with you. Father, keep this ever before us. May we store up treasures in heaven. We ask it in your name. Amen. Goodbye. God bless. Love you, mean it.